Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we have a donation deck from one of my Patreon subscribers. We're playing some ninjas. Now this is the same donor who submitted a different ninjas deck relatively recently, I think it was last month, and I had a really good time with that deck and it felt like it was doing a pretty good job of morphing ninjas into something that works in the meta now. So, for those who aren't familiar, ninjas. So ninjutsu is an ability where you can bounce an unblocked creature that you have that's attacking and put this creature into play from your hand. So this, for a black and a blue, you can bounce, let's say, an attacking Changeling Outcast and turn it into a Yuriko Tiger Shadow. This is an ability, so it's not being cast, so it's uncounterable, which is pretty cool. So we have two ninjas. So this one, whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And this one is a legend. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library, put it onto a hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana cost. So we can put things like Murktide, Murderous Cut, Force of Will into our hand and dome our opponent for a bunch, as well as just being able to draw cards. And because this is a ninja at all times, this can just be an unblockable way of getting these triggers. So that's pretty nice. We also have Ornithopter as a way of playing a creature on turn 1 that we can then turn into a ninja on turn 2. So we've basically got this little engine of drawing cards here. But on top of that, we have these Retrofitter Foundries. So this can turn a Thopter into a 4/4, or could just start churning out servos, which give us stuff to ninjutsu, or just have some threats. And you know what's a Thopter? Ornithopter and Changeling Outcast. So we can play this and start making 4/4s. We can even make a 4/4 on turn 1 with this Ornithopter Retrofitter Foundry combo, which is pretty decent. We've got a bunch of removal of different forms. So we've got Snuff Out, Dismember, Fatal Push, Sheoldred, Edict, Murderous Cut, a bit of everything there. And we also have a one of Brazen Borrower, which is a very nice thing to ninjutsu back because then you get to use the petty theft again, get a little bit of extra value that way. When this doesn't work, we've got a few other threats in the form of Murktide Regent and Orcish Bowmasters. So Murktide Regent is a known entity, it's just a massive guy. So what sometimes happens with the ninja decks is you end up needing something to push through. And maybe your ninjas are sort of blocked on the ground and you can't get through. So you're relying on like a Changeling Outcast or flipping an Ornithopter into a ninja, but then it's only one attack step you get off it. Murktide just gives us a big body that we can just chuck in that already has evasion. And if our opponent spent a bunch of mana dealing with, you know, our 1-drops or some of these ninjas, then we can have a relatively uncontested Murktide, which does a lot of work. Also, a Bowmasters deck, not a bad thing to bounce. It's just a good card. We're in the colours for it. Gives you 2 bodies for ninjutsu. Seems perfect here. Top of that, we've got the things you would expect. So we've got our 8 cantrips, and we've got 7 counter spells, 3 dazes, 4 Force of Wills. Our mana base is very basic heavy, so we've got 3 islands, 3 swamps, a bunch of fetch lands, 1 Undercity Sewers, and 1 Underground Sea. So I imagine we'll probably fetch the Undercity Sewers more than we'll fetch the Underground Sea this league, because that's kind of the deck we are. We're not fetching the Underground Sea very often. We generally want to play on basics, because that's one of the strengths of our deck. I do like this deck doesn't have main deck Wastelands. That used to be a thing in Ninjas, but when I played this very similar build to this before, last month, it felt really good. Sideboard-wise, we do have a Wasteland. If we have to beat up on our opponent's lands, we've got a Wasteland and a back to basics, so we can bring those in for when required. We've got some graveyard hate in the form of Dauthi Voidwalker, which is obviously something that's very good to attack and send back, but it's just a phenomenal card anyway. We've got a couple of Faerie Macabre. Plague Engineer, we can name things like Goblin or Orc. Those are probably going to be the most common names here, but Phyrexian is a pretty good name against Infect players too. Some Artifact Hate and Null Rods. We'll probably be boarding out our Retrofitter Foundry when we board these in, which is fair enough. And we got some ways of countering things. So we got some Hydroblast and Flusterstorms to counter, you know, storm spells or to fight over something in some matchups, as well as ways of stopping goblins doing some horrible things to us. And then we got a couple of Dress Downs, which is good against things like Doomsday, as well as goblins, death and taxes, that sort of jam. And yeah, that's the list. I will put the link to the last time I played this deck in the description. Definitely check it out. It went really well, and we kind of showcased a lot of the power of this deck and how the changes made to this compared to previous iterations has really sort of accelerated its power and managed to find its niche within the format, whereas before the older builds just felt like they were getting absolutely punked by Bowmasters and a bunch of other stuff. All right. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's get ninjaing. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? We are on the play for round 1. We have the curve of Outcast into Ninja, so I think I'm just going to take that. So we're going to lead off on a basic swamp here. And then we can get a basic island. It's all good from there, hopefully. So if we can set up our engine here by getting some extra cards in with this Infiltrator, then we should be having a reasonable time of it. If I just play a red source and bolt this, then that'll obviously be annoying, but I can live with that. So what they could do here is they could kill this, or they could stifle our ninjutsu attack. They could stifle our fetch hand as well, that would suck. Right, let's crack this. Right, let's try and get some ninja action going. Alright, we're just in there. Excellent. Okay. So we've got an engine in play. We'll be drawing an additional card every turn as long as this sticks around. Lorien revealed Island Cycling. There is a card from Modern Masters 3 that got spoiled recently, which is like a little blue-black frog that draws cards when it deals combat damage that might be an interesting fit for ninjas. I'm not sure, but the card looks cool. Reminds me of Psychotog. Alright, so applying our guy. Not unexpected. Our opponent looks to be some sort of like bank control shell by the looks of things. Alright. Play out an Outcast. I think we should have brainstormed first. Because I'm going to brainstorm anyway. Am I going to brainstorm? I don't think I am. I think I'm going to play this Outcast. And just get 2 threats in play. Now, they're obviously not very big threats. But we can brainstorm in response to something if we need to. So something like a Up the Beanstalk could be annoying. Orcish Bowmasters is very good here as well. If they Bowmasters, we will brainstorm in response. We won't brainstorm end of turn whilst they have open black mana though. We'll need to find another blue source before we play this Murktide, but we're a long way from that anyway. There is an Orcish Bowmasters. Let's have a look. Yuriko is good. I think the Murktide Regent is a thing for later. Yep. There goes the Bowmasters. So we have the Murderous Cut for the Bowmasters if we need to. So our opponent seems to be holding up a Source to Plowshares here. I don't really think we get the luxury of playing around that though. So we have other options available to us, like cutting the Bowmasters and then playing a Ponder. Which, if we find a land, we get to do kind of that and play our Yuriko, which is pretty nice. But we know the top card of our library is a Murktide, so we can do a nice little dome of 7 to our opponent. Because we're going to draw this... actually, no, we do have a land already, don't we? Yes, we're going to draw this Murktide. So let's play this out. Let's go to attacks. This is not actually a draw this, it's a reveal and put it into your hand, so it won't work for Bowmaster pings. Alright, let's ninjutsu. If they've got the plow, then that's going to suck for us. Alright, so we get to dome them for 7 here. Not too shabby. So, how much do I want this Ponder versus how much do I want to cut this Murktide? Because we can just deploy this Murktide next turn, but it's not very big, which isn't very exciting to me. Triumph of St. Catherine is kind of annoying, but we can bounce it. I think I'm going to try and cut this. And I will delve our whole graveyard here so that we can ponder afterwards. I don't think this is where our opponent's going to fight. We can just play this other Outcast. That gives us 2 Yuriko triggers next turn. I do kind of want this Ponder when there's no Bowmasters though. Alright, I'm going to play the Outcast. Up the Beanstalk. Well, that's not playing to the board, and the way we win this game now is by just getting over the finish line here. A Ponder. So if our opponent doesn't find a land, the only interaction they can have are pitch spells. They could have a Solitude or a Force of Will. Those are the kind of things we're a little bit worried about here. They chose to shuffle off that Ponder, so I think we're okay here. So I think the plan is going to be Ponder. Okay, if they found a land, so Plow is available to them. So we're going to Ponder first, and then maybe set up something with our Yuriko triggers so that we can kill our opponent. So what does this do? This is not enough damage. The Bowmasters is very nice though. I would like to have that Bowmasters. So I'm going to put these running Bowmasters on top. So this first one can ping off their army token so that our Yuriko can connect. Alright, our opponent's had enough. That's fair enough. Okay, that was pretty effective. Our opponent's mana base is probably going to struggle a little bit against back to basics. So I'd like this, which means we probably also want the Wasteland. Plague Engineer for our opposing orcs is an option. Not sure if it's the option I want to take. Likewise, Flusterstorm doesn't counter things like Leyline, so I'm not really into that. Dauthi Voidwalker is just another threat if we just want to go up on threats. So these are the 6 cards I'm considering. Snuff Out doesn't look great here, so I think we can get rid of that one. We do still want to have some removal so we can deal with Orcish Bowmasters. So we've got a reasonable amount of things that deal with Orcish Bowmasters, and we might need to deal with the Triumph of St. Catherine. So I think these are fine. How useful are our Dazes going to be? Our opponent has to respect them, but I don't think that's going to be the most difficult thing for them to do. So I think we're going to trim the Dazes, but we're going to keep the Forces in. Because if we start drawing extra cards, that's going to be pretty good. Again, I like Borrower because it's a threat, and my opponent's just going to be trying to play removal spell after removal spell. Ornithopter seems a little bit less exciting here. How many am I trimming is the question. Because they are very low impact. Obviously, if we have our engines and stuff going with it, it's pretty good. Let's get rid of another one. So this is a matchup where we can sometimes just play out things like Yuriko. Or we can make a 4-4 on turn 1. That seems pretty reasonable. So we have a choice how we want to use our Polluted Delta here. Because we already have a land that's going to be a non-basic. So maybe we don't want to be working towards a back to basics here. We do have only one of them. So it's not like it's the end of the world. We can always pitch it to a Force of Will or whatever. Or brainstorm it away. But we can... We've got lots of options here. We can play Ornithopter and Undercity Sewers on turn 1. And that opens us up for several different options on turn 2. Like either playing Yuriko, or playing Retrofitter Foundry, or playing the Dauthi Voidwalker. Or we can play the Ornithopter and the Retrofitters and just start cracking for a bunch. Does that change anything? So I think we are getting the Underground Sea here. I think the plan here is let's play an Ornithopter. We'll play the Changeling. And if we draw an untapped land, we can do one of the other things. So this gives us the highest upshot, and we do need to get in before our opponents really push through on this game. So I think taking the aggressive line that it doesn't need us to draw a land. Like we can still just make Retrofitter Foundry and do some pretty good stuff, get Surveil going, and that sort of jazz. Right, buy from our opponent. No play. So this is probably Leyline Binding, which does make a lot of our lines a bit weaker here. What we can do is we can bash with this and just get 1 damage in. And if they ever try and kill this, then... Alright, so I think we are going Undercity Sewers now. Murderous Cut. I don't think we need that now. We can go into our graveyard. Can fuel a Murktide. I don't think our opponent is going to spend removal on our Changing Outcast here. But if we play our Retrofitter Foundry, they might do in response. Unlikely, but possible. I really don't want to pitch this Yuriko to a Force of Will if we can avoid it. Alright, there is our Retrofitter Foundry. So what we ideally want to do is put Yuriko in instead of this Ornithopter. Because then we'll have 2 ninjas connecting in 1 turn. And that'll give us 2 draws. So is this going to be a Bowmasters? If it's the Bowmasters, then if they try to ping our Outcast, then we are doing alright. We just turn into a 4-4. This could just be an end of turn Brainstorm. A Leyline Binding. Again, I don't want to hit this. So what are they going to hit? They should probably be hitting our Retrofitter Foundry. They are going for the Foundry. Would I like a 4-4? I think I would like a 4-4. I think we'll swap out the Ornithopter because the Changeling is a ninja. So that kind of has more synergy with what we've got going on. It does mean that the Changing Outcast is the thing that we're going to be bouncing when we put in our Shadow. But again, I think that's fine. I'd rather not have to pitch this Yuriko, but we do have 5 power in play. Island Cycling, that's fine. Right, so our opponent is representing some removal spells here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to shove, and if they try and kill one of our creatures, we can turn it into a Yuriko. If they don't, they can take 5, and that's pretty reasonable too. An Orcish Bowmasters. I don't really want to have to deal with this. So now their shield's down. Unless they've got a Solitude. Alright, I think I'm going to flip this Changeling into a Yuriko. Just get that trigger, get that damage going. Not a lot of damage. I would have preferred a black source here, to be honest. So I can play out this Retrofitter Foundry. That doesn't really achieve very much just playing it naked right now. But it's mana efficient, so I guess we'll go with it. It's just in play for later, because we can't turn any of these into anything, because it's a human ninja and this is just a construct. Alright, a Brainstorm from our opponent. Alright, our opponent's just off it. Yeah, okay. We got some ninja stuff going on. I think last time I played this deck, we also had a pretty good time against some of the 4-color Beanstalk decks. So that's interesting. I guess it's because we have all these like crappy creatures that I don't want to kill, but then it kind of puts them in a bit of a bind. No pun intended. Alright. Let's go to round 2, a 1-0. Alright, our opening hand for round 2. We make the guy, we turn it into a better guy, we draw some cards, we hopefully win the game. I will. Now, because we're on the draw, it does mean that our Changing Outcast is very susceptible to Orcish Bowmasters. Which is something we're just going to have to suck up, I'm afraid. Basic Island. And no play. Interesting. Right, to dodge Stifle, we can just play like this. So we've got 2 Yurikos, which isn't necessarily the amount of Yurikos I would like. We can be a little bit cavalier about the first one, because if it dies, then, you know, we can re-up the turn afterwards. Or, well, 2 turns, I guess, because we have the delay of not having a creature in play. A Grim Monolith. Okay, so we're probably looking at, like, the dual deck, which is going to be difficult for us to handle pre-board, but post-board we do get the... Yikes. We get the big haymaker of Null Rod. So we don't get to Yuriko this turn. Now we can put the Yuriko in if we want, just so it's in play. But I think we're probably going to have to be like brainstorming, looking for Force of Will this turn. Which we unfortunately, because we played on the basic, we don't get to do a shuffle afterwards. Let's go and get ourselves Underground Sea, because it doesn't really matter here. Because our opponent's not really messing with our mana. Alright, Brainstorm. This is not going to do anything, I'm afraid. We could put the Murktide on to get more damage, actually. That might have been a slightly shrewder thing. But the plan is to immediately shuffle our library next turn. So I'd rather try and draw a fresh card that could be a Force of Will than draw this Murktide just to do a little bit of extra damage. Now we should, well, not should be, but we're quite likely to be dead this turn. That's kind of what the One Ring says. If you untap with this card, you're probably winning the game. And our opponent, if they're on the dual build, will have Force of Wills, which is going to be a hurdle that we're unlikely to be able to overcome, even if we do find some interaction, because our opponent's just got so many cards here. Who's this going to be? Copy Artifact. Yeah, this does look like the dual build. So this copy is... Okay, they're just going for the One Ring. Oh, and they're keeping the new one. That's interesting. That sort of surprises me. I thought they'd just get the trigger and then just have the extra cards. Alright, so we're going to need to find a way of doing some damage to our opponent. Because at present, that's not a thing we're doing. But we do get to do something not terrible here, which I will take. So we go and get ourselves... This island is probably fine. So we attack. Then we will ninjutsu this in. This won't draw any cards, but it's just going to mean that we're going to have more stuff in play. Oh look, our damage is prevented. Alright, so let's just jam this other guy now. So basically just casting this Infiltrator for 2. And then next turn we can flip the Outcast into a Yuriko. Now our opponent is very, very likely to kill us this turn. They're going to have 10 cards in hand. Like any sort of like key or the ability to put a Jewel into play is probably going to be enough to get them going. If I'm familiar with Coveted Jewel, it's a 6 mana artifact, enters the battlefield, it draws 3, attacks with 3 mana of any one colour, and if your opponent hits you, they get to steal it. But you basically just play it, copy it, play it, copy it, transmute artifact, all that sort of jazz, and then we lose, basically, is what's going to happen. It's pretty cool to see, though, so... Alright, 6 mana in the pool. Here's the Coveted Jewel I just mentioned. This comes in, they draw 3 cards. So they can transmute this into a Paradox Engine, and then just every spell they cast will just give them untaps of their Monolith and their One Ring, and then if they find any more jewels, then they get untaps of the jewels. Right, here's a Metamorph. So this is going to copy the Jewel. Yeah, so I'm going to draw another 3 cards. So that's basically a free play, just cost them 2 life. And you just get to draw 3 more cards. Right, this looks like another Metamorph. Yep. Another Jewel. So they got 14 cards in hand now, nearly gone through half their library. If somehow they can't kill us here, then we might just be able to finish them next turn. If we get some lucky Yuriko hits. But we stack the Yuriko on the bottom, so that if we draw a Brainstorm, we can then set up the Yuriko triggers to do more damage. Because we do have the Murktide in hand. Now this is probably a moot point and our opponent's just going to kill us. But they're spending a lot of time thinking, so maybe they don't just have an obvious line to win in the game. There is a Grim Monolith. The Might Stone. So -5ing something or drawing 2 cards. Let's see what option they go for. They're thinking about it, which means maybe we're going to get another turn. We're only going to get 1 Yuriko trigger here. Okay, yep, so they are trying to kill our guy. That's fascinating. All those cards, I don't really have anywhere to go. Oh no, they're still going. But you would just draw the cards, right? If you definitely have a clean route to winning the game. But maybe they've got like an abstract route. But if you have an abstract route, then you probably want to see if that works out and then play the Might Stone. I don't know. What artifact are they going to cast? It could be another Metamorph. Cryptic Coat. Okay, that's new. So if we draw a Brainstorm, we might be able to win. Alright, our opponent's passing the turn, so we've got a shot. If we can Brainstorm to put this Murktide back, then we'll be okay. I'll take any cantrip. Try and set the top of our library for a nice win here. We did not. So we are... so we'll do this first and get a land out of our deck. So we're going to get a blue land, I think. Alright. Sorry, it's when your creature's not blocked that you get the coveted jewels. Not when you deal combat damage. It's not like the Monarch. It's similar but different. Okay. So the ward on this is 2. Okay, so we get to draw a bunch of cards here. That's interesting. We didn't draw a Brainstorm to set anything up here. So, we get to play out a bunch of stuff. I think our opponent's going to have a pretty bad time here. So, we can Fatal Push this, tapping one of our jewels that we kindly got from our opponent. We'll pay the ward. And what else are we doing here? I think we just play out this Bowmasters while we can. Just get that in there nice and good. Ping our opponent down. So we've got Force of Will. That's pretty handy. We're not going to play any more lands here. Are we going to cast a Ponder? Or are we just going to hold up our 6 mana? I think we're just going to cast this Ponder. See if we can find some additional... It's any order. Shuffle. That's not very useful. Do I want to tap this just to put some more guys in play? I don't think so. We should have lethal damage here. So we've got a bunch of stuff that we can discard. Don't think we're going to need this, this, or this. Alright, opponent. Somehow you drew half your deck and whiffed. So we can feel quite fortunate. Right, so I'm going to draw some cards and let us ping them to death with Bowmasters. We do have this Force of Will hanging around. We may have got a bit lucky here. Alright, yeah, we managed to win without the Force of Will. I will take it. So Null Rod's probably going to be useful here. The Wasteland, not unhelpful either. Flusterstorm is unlikely to do much. Actually, is that true? They're playing... So this won't hit Copy Artifact, but will hit Transmute Artifact. Probably won't hit any other spells. Apart from like enemy Force of Wills. I don't think that's where I want to be. So our removal is pretty bad. Although, bear in mind, our opponent might be going into Wormcoil Engine. But we want to try and fight it with Counter Magic, I think. Back to basics can be okay here, but I don't think it's really the line I want to fight on. Dress down doesn't seem good. Do we just want more threats like Dauthi Voidwalker? Maybe we just want Flusterstorm just so we can make sure that our Null Rod resolves. I can buy that. And we get one more slot So they usually win just with like a big ballista, or sometimes they can cast Thassa's Oracle. So dress down is an interesting option here. I think I like the dress down slightly more than these. It's also a blue card. And at the end of the day, it cantrips into other stuff. Alright, our opening hand has a Force of Will and has a Brainstorm to try and dig us some action. We don't really have a lot of pressure, but I think we can keep this and just try and Force of Will their first play and use a Brainstorm to find what we need. Is it ideal? No, but I think it's fine. Right, City of Traitors. This is a defense grid, then that's going to suck a little bit. A Chalice for 1. Yuck. I don't think we can afford to waste our Force of Will on a Chalice against our opponent's our opponent's combo deck. Interesting. That does shut down a lot of our deck. It probably means this Brainstorm's going into the Murktide. Obviously, we're going to immediately draw that. Our Prismatic Vista cannot find the Undercity Sewers because it only finds basics. So I guess we're passing here. We do have a Brazen Borrower that can bounce this Chalice. But otherwise, I shut quite a lot of our deck down. We can just start casting Retrofitter Foundry and stuff to put it into the graveyard for the purposes of bringing back our Murktide Regent. Alright, our opponent is probably casting like the One Ring or Karn this turn. Alright, so this has to get counterspelled because it will eventually win in the game. Well, I said that last game and it didn't, so... Have they got force to force back? They do. Alright. So our opponent's going to be drawing some extra cards here. That is a pretty good find. That's the exact sort of card that can pull us out of this little hole. So wait for our opponent to tap their One Ring here, because otherwise they can tap in response and they're more likely to have a Force of Will. And they're going to draw cards this. That's what their deck does. The little Bowmasters that could. The little Bowmasters that couldn't. Okay. Carry on, opponent. 2 Force of Wills to protect their One Ring that's eventually just going to draw them the things they need to win the game with. We got, what, 3, 4, 5, 6? So we don't have enough to put a Murktide Regent into play. We can probably play our Retrofitters into the Chalice. Maybe we could have done that on turn 1. To have given us enough for a Murktide in this situation. But our opponent is running away with this one. Just a Metamorph. What are they doing? Are they copying the ring here? Thought they might. Our opponent's playing this quite aggressively, I would say. Like, you could be quite content just to have the ring with a bunch of counters on instead of just playing that new ring. So this gets us a Surveil land. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're just shy of casting the Murktide. But we will get the Surveil land now. And then it'll give us information about what we're working with. Because if we've got someone like a Borrower, maybe that changes how we want to approach this. A Force of Will. This is awkward. Because we can draw this next turn. But then our Murktide isn't a thing we get to cast. And then how are we winning the game? But our opponent is... I just don't think we're winning this game, to be honest. I think we're supposed to put this into our graveyard to make our Murktide bigger. Ugh, that's awkward. Or if we put it on top. Yeah, we're going to put it on top. I'm not a big fan of this, but... Alright, so we're going to play this into the graveyard so we can get more cards for our Murktide. Our opponent did fizzle last game, so maybe they can this turn as well. I think they were a bit overly aggressive with their Phyrexian Metamorph because they could have just had an additional card now. Grim Monolith. Okay. Nothing. Interesting. So now I guess we're just holding up this Force of Will. Like, we could just deploy the Murktide, but you know, our opponent clearly needs to find the thing that's going to get them there. So if we can answer that, then maybe it'll be okay. A Grim Monolith, that's not what our fight is over. Coveted Jewel, that is probably worth fighting over. Let's try it. Our opponents used 2 forces, so they're unlikely to have more. Possible. Okay, they didn't. That's good. Copy Artifact. They're just going to get another One Ring. It's not very exciting. We're going to get another monolith. No, it's just a very aggressive use of these copy artifacts. Like, you're getting one card now, but you could get like 3 more cards the next turn if you just save that. Very weird. We will crack this Prismatic Vista in our upkeep because I'll take the marginal thin-in that's not really a thing, but it's close enough because you can't use any cantrips into the chalice anyway. A Force of Will. Okay, that's the spell we get to cast, so we'll keep it. Alright, our opponent's tapping the one ring to draw 2 cards. They could have drawn like 4 cards off of one if they'd have kept their other ring. Alright. Yeah, sacrificing their ancient City of Traitors because they played an ancient tomb. A coveted jewel. Let's just say no to this. You got a Force of Will in your 6 cards over there? No. Okay, but I am Hellbent and our opponent gets to draw many additional cards. So now will be a lovely time to draw Null Rod. Just give me that Null Rod. Okay, we've got a Force of Will. Maybe our opponent's one ring will help us out. We just keep drawing the Force of Wills. So if our opponent draws here, the next one is going to hit them for 3, and then the turn after that might kill them. But they should be able to win surely if they're going to be drawing like another 8 cards next turn or whatever, or over the next 2 turns. Transmute Artifact. I don't think we can let this happen. We got all 4 Force of Wills. We still don't have a way of winning the game though. So our opponent might be annoyed at this, but they are still very far ahead. They got full grip over there. They've got an active one ring. There is a Lotus Petal. Like, they might be able to just carry on and just do another Transmute Artifact now. They can transmute away the ring, so you don't have to worry about it dealing them damage. Just go and get the jewel. Alright, they're just going to play another one ring. Yeah, I can see why they would keep this one this time around. But I don't know, even so, you got to believe your deck's going to be able to just spank the opponent drawing that many cards. Alright, we have the Null Rod. Our draws have been above average. They did not draw with the one ring. So they might still have a Wormcoil Engine. That's usually the Duke from these decks to kind of get themselves an alternative win con that doesn't need to go through a bunch of loops and can get around the one Null Rod effects because you just play a bunch of soul lands and just dump your massive guy. Okay, so now we need to find win conditions. So we need to not draw our horrible 1-drops. We might as well play this land. Marginal thinning, I guess, is the thing. Alright, we're going to see a Brazen Borrower here. Address down. Alright, this is just a cantrip. That's fine. Like, our opponent knows we don't have anything here, so we couldn't bluff another Force of Will. I guess we could try and bluff a Force of Negation, but that's not really going to get us anywhere, is it? Only they'd have tapped that one ring, giving us a little bit of extra damage every turn. Alright, Seagate Reborn. Tapped. Not a surprise, and they're on 5 life. Alright, here comes 6 mana. It's a coveted jewel. So this just draws them 3 cards and puts them to 1 life. So Orcish Bowmasters is a pretty good draw. This makes it very hard for them to cast a Wormcoil, which makes me believe they don't have the Wormcoil Duke in. And they're just looking for like a bounce effect or something. A Changeling Outcast. You are not helpful, are you? We didn't actually fetch with our fetch land like we should have done. Well, we would have shuffled this Changeling Outcast off the top of our deck, I suppose. Alright, opponent. Right, they did nothing. It's our turn. We'll crack this fetch hand in our upkeep this time. We'll go and get a swamp. Just got one of each in there. Alright. We've got a lethal threat. Go, Gadget Ninja. Our opponent cannot cast Force of Will because they are on 1 life. Well, they can cast it, but it will kill them. And they don't have the mana to pay because of the Ancient Tombs. So you've got 1 turn to win, otherwise you're going to get beaten down by a weedy little Vidalcan. Alright, so they're going to get themselves an Ingenious Infiltrator here. Okay. So we do not have a lethal threat anymore. Because these will just bounce off each other. Okay, this allows us to fetch And thin our deck marginally, but we're not attacking here. They got another one. And we can get beaten down by our own ninjas. That would be very funny. Yeah, that is very funny. Okay, so our opponent has an interesting line to win in this game. I'm enjoying this board position. It's a very fun one. Alright, let's crack this. Let's go and find... what fetch lands do we have? Polluted Deltas are the only fetch lands left in our deck. Which fetch either, so it doesn't really matter. But Bowmasters? Not a Bowmasters. Alright, our opponent gets to start drawing cards if they want to. But they have to have another creature in order to do that. Because they have to swing with both to get an attack through. What a weird game. Our opponent is casting another copy of the One Ring. The reason our opponent is doing this is so that they get protection. So they can attack with their 2 Ingenious Infiltrators. And they can draw an additional card here. And don't have to worry about the crackback. But they've made a fatal mistake here, perhaps. Because just us attacking will get us the coveted jewel if our opponent lets us do that. Right, our opponent has seen that line as well and didn't particularly like it. That's our last land that we can fetch. An Orcish Bowmasters. This will kill our opponent in their upkeep. So that's nice. Is that when we're casting it, is the question. I guess before our opponent gets hardcast Force of Will mana. They play a land, they can hardcast Force of Will, but they can't cast Force of Will right now. Address down. Yep, that's an annoying one. Okay. Carry on, opponent. Just a bounce effect. Transmute artifact. Okay, I wonder what they're going to have here. So sack with the coveted jewels. They can get anything from their deck. If they have the Web Coil, then this would be a pretty good way of getting it. They did not get anything. Do they just want to look at their deck to see if they're dead or not? I don't know. Or is this just to get rid of the coveted jewels? They can attack with 2 Infiltrators, but that doesn't work. Because we have 2 creatures. Alright. What have we got? An Ornithopter. I will play an Ornithopter. This can be a lethal attacker if we find any ninjas. We're not going to bother playing a Changeling Outcast to fuel our graveyard because our graveyard is very healthily stocked right now. Right, we continue to play this silly game. So, if they bounce our Null Rod, they still can't draw any additional cards. Alright, another One Ring. Just can buy them a turn. And it also allows them to use their... Alright, so now they have a Worm Coil engine. That is some big game over there. This must have been in their hand when they transmute artifacted before. A Ponder that we can't cast. Interesting. So this Worm Coil is a bit of a doozy. Our opponent only has 4 minutes left on the clock though. Or 5 minutes I guess. We're going to take the 6 here. We can chump block next turn if we have to. Another Bowmasters. Our opponent's on 7 life. What does that mean for us? This Worm Coil is a bit of an issue. So we could block with the Bowmasters and try and get our opponent to cast one like a coveted jewel. I don't hate that as a little strategy. Alright, our opponent's got quite a lot of life over there. Okay. So we attack with the Ornithopter here. Put in the Yuriko. This will get us some triggers. It doesn't really matter which one we put on top because we're not going to have any Brainstorms we can actually cast it. A Daze, that's not really a playable Magic the Gathering card right now. Brainstorm also not great. Alright, so we'll play this Ornithopter and we'll pass. I think we block with the Ornithopter here. Yes, we can turn it into other guys. Our plan is to attack with this Ingenious Infiltrator and ping with the Bowmasters. We can also Daze our Undercity Sewers if we need to. It's going to be a coveted jewel. X is 3. I will get this value off of our Undercity Sewers here. They're going to pay for this, it's fine. But we just get the Surveil. X is 3. Interesting. Like the backside of Brazen Borrower. Alright, let's get a little bit of value here. See how good our Yuriko triggers can possibly be. This can go into our graveyard, please. We'll go to attack. If we attack with both, so double block one, then it dies. But then we do get 2 triggers through here. I think it's correct to attack with both here. Just get this going. Pin this one down. This gives us a chump blocker. We have a bunch of uncastables in hand. We'll carry on with our life. Opponent's only got 15 cards in hand, so we only need to survive for like 15 turns. And our opponent also only has 3 minutes to win this game and another game. So I think we're locked to win this round. But I am interested to see how this is going to pan out. This game has been a pretty wild ride. If our opponent plays a spell, we will Daze, picking up our Undercity Sewers. Attacking with both. This will give us a Bowmasters trigger. That's kind of interesting. Right, let's just chump this. This will give us another token to chump with next turn as well when they get the card draw here. We can also cast a Brainstorm end of turn and then Daze it ourselves if we want to. Is it worth doing this? We have a Flusterstorm in our deck. We can use these to build Storm. An Ornithopter. Alright, I'm going to attack with our 2 friends here. Okay, I don't think it matters which round these go. A 0. Okay, the Brazen Borrower is pretty good here. Alright, our opponents scoop into the Borrower because they know we can bounce this out of the way. That was a really weird game. But I think we got lucky, but I also think our opponent made a few mistakes. And now, obviously, I don't know what was in their hand, but from my side of the board, our opponent just had an active One Ring, and they kept like using their really powerful copy artifact effects just to make another One Ring with less counters on when they weren't under any pressure. So I think if I were them, I probably would have just let it ride for a little bit longer and just got deeper in, because obviously every turn that you have One Ring, it does deal you more damage, but it draws you a lot deeper. So I think I probably would have played that differently from the other side. But again, I don't know what our opponent had. I don't know if they're new to the deck. I don't know if they're an expert and they know better than me. But that's just my take on it. All right, we're 2-0. Let's pop into round 3. We have an Island Ponder. That's not a bad place to be. I think I will keep this one. Our opponent has an island, but no Ponder. So we could just play our guy and just get our plan going. I think that is better. If we get stifled here, that sucks. But, okay, we didn't get stifled. All right, let's play out this Changeling Outcast. I don't really want to have to force a will to protect this. Opponent is brainstorming, that's fine. This feels more like a combo brainstorm. Just trying to be really mana efficient so that their turn going off next turn is more likely or whatever. But we'll see. It's going to be a Swords to Plowshares. A Prismatic Ending. Am I fighting over this? Prismatic Ending usually means control deck. Which means the thing we're trying to do is keep our creature alive. Right, let's pitch a Yuriko. This will tell our opponent we have a second Yuriko. A Brainstorm? Sure. So we're giving our opponent some pretty poor Brainstorms. Alright. So now we have no mana from our opponent's side. So we get to just do our thing in theory. This is where they solitude us and make me sad. Let's do the thing. We came to game. Pow. We're going to flip for us. Something tasty. Let's have a look. Ooh, 5 on the Murderous Cut. You love to see it. Alright, we're going to play a little Ornithopter. So we can ponder and set up our next Yuriko flip. Although I imagine we're probably losing our creature this turn. True Name Nemesis. Yeah? That does some stuff, doesn't it? Okay. I don't care about this one too much. Alright, let's start with a Ponder. Force of Negation. Pitching Dovin's Veto to stop our Ponder. That's wild. Is that our fight? I don't think that's our fight. Like, we've got this little guy. He's unblockable. How would you like them apples, opponent? We're not going to attack with our 1-3 into their 3-1 protection from all of my permanents guy. There is the Delta from our opponent. Daze not looking quite so good, but if our opponent taps out something big, we can interfere. Thought Seize. Yep, at least they're not playing Bowmasters, right? So this is also 2 life. I'll take it. We don't have a target for basically... Okay, these they want to get rid of. Maybe they're going to play something big out here. Red, white, and blue. 4th Eorlingus, X equals 1. Okay, so they're going to attack us with the true name to guarantee the Monarch here. We can just sort of throw the Monarch back and forth between us. Back and forth between us. Alright. Right, so they're drawing a card over there. This turn is going to be pretty good for us though, right? We cut this guy. We attack with both of these. We get 2 Yuriko triggers and the Monarch. Like, that's pretty good. We've got a Daze. Our opponent is unlikely to be casting anything into the Daze, but another Ninja is pretty good. I don't think they can afford to attack here. Supreme Verdict is pretty reasonable. We can Brainstorm and hopefully sort of reload. But let's see what our opponent does here. Right, still on the attacks. Maybe they got Solitudes to draw to, but then we have the double Daze. Well, we actually only have 1 Daze, but... Polluted Delta, you say? I will crack this first, controversially. Let's Brainstorm. Wowzers trousers. Opponent's on 6, are they? So if we put back a Brainstorm and the Murktide, let's go swinging. Let's just ninjutsu this one in. Alright, our opponent sees the writing on the wall there. Alright. Some kind of multicolored control deck. It looked kind of like blue-white base, which is interesting. So the back to basics is going to be good here. The Wasteland is going to be good here. Again, I just like having threats. Plague Engineer does answer their little Murktide as well. Flusterstorm is something we can use to force things through. In terms of removal spells, I don't think these are going to cut it necessarily. I'd like to keep the Edict in. The Dismember can go. They might have Triumphs, but I think we're just going to try and overpower them with more threats. We'll get rid of the low impact guys here. And then we have a choice if we want to bring in this Flusterstorm. We can bring in Dress Down to try and deal with a true name. But we kind of just go round it, right? We just go in the sky. We go unblockable. We make little guys. You know, more sky, kill this. Shadow. I don't think we really need to deal with it in that fashion. We could trim a Daze for a Dress Down. Is that really where I want to be here? I don't think so. I think we're just going to go back in like this. If we see more of our opponent's deck and they're a little bit different to how I originally thought, then we can obviously tweak. Okay, we can keep this. We can deploy a little unblockable guy. We've got Force of Will for something really spooky. But we're just going to make some pressure. Alright, just the classic island go again. I'll play this one out. This allows us to hold up Daze as well. Obviously, Daze gets better. Gets worse as the game goes on. So the better time to use it is early on. No play from our opponents. Let's attack and see what our opponent wants to do here. Would I rather Brainstorm or Ponder here? I think I'd rather Brainstorm. I don't have Bowmasters mana, so I want to do this before they do. It's not great. I think we'll put back an Outcast and the Vista. And crack this. We're going to get ourselves a Swamp. Trick Bind. Okay. That I don't really care about. Maybe our opponent's like some kind of Dreadnought deck? I don't know. I don't think Trick Bind is the way to fight against what we're doing that much, but I can counter an Ninjutsu ability, so it's not the worst. But I haven't seen Trick Bind for a long time. Play this out, we'll go to attacks. Just crack away for 1. I don't think we're pondering here. I think we're just going to use our Surveil land. But that way we can also hold up the Borrower in case something weird happens and we need to, like, they do like a little 4th Eorlingus and try and hold one back for some reason. I don't know. Although we're probably going to fight over the 4th Eorlingus with counter spells anyway. But I don't know. It just seems like a pretty free thing to do. Right. You can Trick Bind us again. 3 mana. Opposition Agent, you say. Let me Force of Will this, pitching the Ponder. Say no to this one. Like, I guess we could have waited for them to Pyroblast here. Wait for them to put the thing on the stack, I guess. I don't know why they're brainstorming right now. Like, their guy's already gone. Let's get our Undercity Sewers into play. Put this on top of my library, please. Opponent's deck is unusual. I feel our opponent is just trying to play the... If they're playing Trick Bind, they're just trying to play the squeeze your lands and, like, cheese you out game. Maybe I didn't have to fight so hard over that opposition agent. Narset. Okay, this doesn't actually impact our Yuriko triggers. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, so we can't attack the Narset with this. But that's fine. You can ignore the Narset. See what they reveal to us. A prismatic ending. I see. Okay, so our opponent doesn't have Stifle mana up now. So we'll attack our opponent with this Yuriko. Get ourselves a nice trigger. And let's crack this for a swamp. I'll play out one Changing Outcast and one Dauthi Voidwalker. We've still got some more threats in hand to reload with if we need to, but we've got a decent amount of pressure. We've got 2 ninjas, we can get double triggers going. Our Dauthi Voidwalker is unblockable and can clean up that Narset if we want to next turn, but we might just ignore it. We can see what happens. They've got multiple options to point their prismatic ending at. If they just Supreme Verdict us, then, well, sure, that sucks. Alright, that's not a Supreme Verdict, that's something. Ponder goes into the Void. It's not really something we want off the Dauthi Voidwalker. The body is just more impressive. We could technically kill our opponent next turn if they don't do anything here. With double Yuriko triggers. I suspect they're going to kill the Yuriko because it's the card advantage engine. Daze Undoing. Okay. Our hand wasn't great anyway. It was fine. Swords to Plowshares. Okay. We draw another ninja? That'd be funny. We did not draw another ninja. How much do I care about our opponents? I guess we might as well kill the Narset here. Am I playing out this Dauthi Voidwalker? Or am I holding it back for another threat? I think I'm going to play it out. Is that right? That's a tough call. I think we've seen more spot removal out of our opponents, so I think I'm going to try and play this now. So they need multiple spot. Because if we don't play out and they just kill our Dauthi Voidwalker, then we don't have a lot of board presence. And they sort of bought the extra turn that they were looking for. We don't know anything about their hand now because they got shuffled away. And if they try and like cheese us with a wheel combo again, we can just say no to it. Alright, there is a Ponder. There is a Brainstorm. They shuffled off their Ponder. Ancient Tomb as well. So that's to power out, presumably, Hull Breaches and Opposition Agent. A Ponder, this is probably going to shuffle. They just wheel themselves into nothing but cantrips. Yeah, wowzers trousers. All the cantrips. Our Voidwalker is eating well. We can just turn a Voidwalker into a Narset next turn, which is pretty gross. If our opponent's trying to draw loads of cards, which is probably why they're firing off all the cantrips they can right now. Because they just don't want to get locked under a Narset. That's interesting. We're not going to crack this fetch now because we do have Brainstorm and things on our deck. Right, our opponent has got a Source of Plowshares up here. They also have 6 cards in hand, so they could have a Force of Will. I think we're just going to clock our opponent. We'll leave this in hand as like a little bit of a distraction for what could happen. So this turns off the Ancient Tombs. So it's quite important to put our opponent to 2 there. It means that if they use a Pitchcast Force of Will or a fetch land, then our Orcish Bowmasters are just lethal on their own. It's a fetch land. Alright, so Orcish Bowmasters is now lethal. That's good to know. We do have a card in hand which might be tricking our opponent. Thinking we have something. Daze Undoing. Okay, I will draw a whole new grip of cards. Okay, our opponent's scooping. So I don't really know what our opponent's deck is up to with Trick Binds in. Like, we obviously saw what they were doing, but I don't think that's where you want to be. It feels like playing that and the whole wheel combo thing is a little bit too much of like fun stuff, if you know what I mean. When, you know, they could just be having... Because you have to take out cards to put in, you know, your fun stuff. And like the wheel and Narset's kind of cool. I'm not sure how useful the trick binds are going to be. Maybe that's just a sideboard card anyway. But in order to do that, you kind of have to get rid of some of the bread and butter control pieces. But we are 3-0. We are cruising right now. We are 2-0. We are 3-0, 6-0 right now. So let's go to round 4. We are on the play. We have a Changeling Outcast and nowhere to go. I don't think we can keep this one. We're definitely not keeping this one because we can't actually play the game. Island Ponder. Okay, we'll keep this one. The sewers, sorry, can go back. I don't think we need all of these lands, so we just send one of them back. We can run on relatively low land count here. Alright, so let's just go and get a basic island and Ponder. We're looking for threats here. There are 2 threats. So the Brainstorm on the bottom, and then we'll take the Foundry on the... we'll take the Changing Outcast into our hand because the Foundry is kind of the better card. Obviously, the Changing Outcast has a lot of synergy with our deck, though. This is for the purposes of getting Thoughtseize and stuff. All right. Nothing from our opponent there. They're going to be a Stifle Gamer. Let's find out. They are not a Stifle Gamer. I think I will get this Swamp here. I will play this Retrofitter's Foundry. It's an engine. They thought about that for a while. I wonder if they are going to try and answer our Changeling Outcast. Because they could have a Daze. Alright, we potentially have a 4-4 if we want one. Whether or not we want one will depend on what our opponent does, but we'll see. They're cycling a Troll of Khazad-dûm. Okay, are they going to reanimate this? Paying around Daze, that would suck. For us. I don't think we are going to retrofit as this. I'm just going to hold off for now. So they're representing Orcish Bowmasters here. So we can go to attacks. If they ping this, we can turn it into something else. If they play a Bowmasters, we can cast our Brainstorm. I'm not going to cast the Brainstorm and try and rely on the Daze to deal with the Bowmasters either. That feels like a losing proposition. Our opponent might have a 2-mana reanimation spell like Animate Dead. And they're just waiting to play around the Daze. There is a Wasteland that we have blanked with the way we fetched. There is a Reanimate. We don't really get to do anything about that, unfortunately. And again, I don't want to just Brainstorm into an obvious Bowmasters. Okay. Force of Will. You're a little bit late. So we can start making little guys, but they will be little. So our opponent attacks and we can make a 4-4. And our opponent is on a relatively low life total. I'd just like to get this Brainstorm off. If possible. Cracking in for a bunch here. It's gonna be a... I'm going to play a Grief here. This does just feel like Bowmasters Town. Alright, let's make a 4-4. So they might Bowmasters this other one now. In which case we Brainstorm in response. Alright, if they have double Bowmasters, this is not going to be great for us. Okay, so we put 2 of these back. So how useful is the Borrower? Very, very useful, I would say. So do I want to Force Pitch Force? And then holding up the Daze, put the Borrower on top. Our opponent has a Force as well. This will ping down our little friend. But we get to bounce their Troll. And then we have the biggest thing on the board. Oh, they got more action here. Petty Theft. I would say no to your Petty Theft. Alright, for a minute I thought I had something else as well. So now we have this Borrower. We can crack in with our friend. Right, just going under the bus. I'm trying to think when is the best time to play this Brazen Borrower. Our opponent might be able to get some more cards going. I think we just Petty Theft this guy now. Alright. We know we've got a Ponder on top. Which isn't amazing. Right, so there's a Ponder from our opponent. It's going to be a real test because the old Scam deck is certainly the premier blue-black deck right now. Well, Rescaminator, Bug Scam, Classic Scam, like that general ballpark. Alright, so we got an Undercity Sewers, trying to get a little bit of selection for our opponent there. They left a card on top, that's disturbing. How much do you value your Bowmaster's opponent? Is it a chump blocker? Or is it a thing to suppress our cantrips? Let's find out. Another Bowmasters. Okay, so this means they're probably prodding us for 1 with this Bowmasters. They know we have a Borrower chilling in the wings though. That's kind of a bold one. Although I guess they know that we don't have a land because maybe we'd have played it earlier, but that's not necessarily true. Okay. In comes the big boy. We can start making little boys now. And these can trade into Bowmasters if necessary. Our opponent just probably doesn't attack into this is what actually happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to see another big troll, I think. There it is. Okay. I don't believe these Bowmasters are attacking. Let's make a guy end step. Now we can like try and multi-block this troll. Attacking here doesn't feel good. Guess we're chilling. Are we going to take the big multi-block on the troll and lose all of our things? That is a choice. I think I might have to take that choice. Unless we believe in the power of Yuriko here. Let's believe in the power of Yuriko. Maybe that's foolish. But our opponent, if they have any sort of Bowmasters, any removal spell, bounce spell, we just get completely blown out there. But I guess we're going to get blown out by it anytime. They are reanimating a Brazen Borrower. This will give them a flying blocker. Interesting. Alright. We have a line here. If they don't block all of our guys, maybe we Yuriko. Another Bowmasters. Yeah, I don't think we were beating this as it turns out. Goodbye. Servo taken. The triple Bowmasters is going to be tough to beat. They are just going to chump block these, but we have to make the play we have available to us. Sure. Alright, that's our first game loss so far. Okay, Plague Engineer for opposing Orcs feels pretty good. Opponent's a graveyard deck, so we'll take these. Faerie Macabre, I think, is playable here too. The back to basics, I'm not big on. I think it's fine, but I don't think that's where I want to be because they tend to have a couple of basics they can tutor for. It's an option though. Dress down, taking stuff away from our opponent's Bowmasters or from their Troll is certainly interesting as well. And Flusterstorm can be used to fight some of their early graveyard stuff and whatnot. So I think we're probably trimming on Ornithopters. I think Dismember kills Trolls, so we want that. Fatal Push kills Bowmasters, Murderous Cut. Snuff Out is the obvious one to cut because it's rubbish here. I don't actually like Force of Will in this matchup because there's loads of 2-for-1s flying all over the shop. So we can afford to have one of these cards in. What are we going to have? There's merit for all of them. I think I just like the Fluster here. It's cheap interaction. Although we're kind of tapping out a lot, aren't we, with our deck? It's just the nature of how we operate. So maybe we just want like a big back to basics haymaker. And just kind of try and make things a bit uneven. We'll go with that. We have Bowmasters, we have Island Ponder, we can keep this. I think I'm going to lead off on a basic island for the purposes of Wasteland not ruining our day. Also, Stifle is a card that does exist these days in the meta, so why not play around it when you can? Let's Ponder. Interesting. I quite like these cards. I think we put the Changeling Outcast. We don't really want to be the first person playing the Borrower, is it? Just put this down. And then we have a choice out of these two. Which one? I guess we kind of want the Macabre in hand right now. Just in case they try and grief and do some nonsense that way. Obviously the grief will just take the Faerie Macabre. But we could always daze it. Thought Seize. Is this worth me dazing? It does set us back a bunch. Nope, I think we just let this go. So they're probably going to take Orcish Bowmasters because it is easily the best card in our hand. Oh, they took the Retrofitters. That's interesting. I guess that's the harder card for them to answer based on the configuration of their deck. Right, let's play a Brainstorm while we can play around our opponent's things. Oh, I've tapped the wrong land to do that, haven't I? That's really tilting. Whoops, that was a huge error. I was supposed to tap off this island and deploy the other guy. Yuck. So, what do we want to do here? We do have double Daze available. I guess Yuriko is going to take a little bit of work to get into play, so I guess we put Yuriko and then the Outcast on top. Yeah, that was a bit of a spew there. We should have tapped the correct land. We do have double Daze, which can do some work. Murktide Stalker. What is our answer to this? I don't really want to double Daze this guy, so I guess we're just going to beat it by being a better creature deck. Maybe. Alright, there is our Changeling Outcast. Our opponent just knows they're not going to do any graveyard-based shenanigans while we have this Faerie anyway. Putting stuff to the graveyard is not something we get to remove, because once it's gone to the graveyard, it's going to set that trigger off. So you can't just remove it and stop them growing their Stalker. Right, there's a Wasteland. That's interesting. There is an Orcish Bowmasters. That is interesting. We will let this happen. That's fine. Black blue. Let's ping their Orcish Bowmasters down. We've got 2 Dazes. A Brainstorm. I think that's fine. Ping this off. So we amass onto our Orc here. If you haven't seen that interaction before, it's pretty gross. This is unblockable. Our opponent knew we had the Bowmasters. I'm interested that they played into that. Now they still get the 1-1, but we now have a 2-2. It is an Orc army. I do find it funny that army is a creature type that you most commonly see as a 1-1. So I think we're probably getting attacked by both of their creatures this turn. Neither of their creatures. That is very interesting. Still haven't decided to fire off this Wasteland. A Murderous Cut. It's fine if we want to. I don't think we're going to be firing this Yuriko in. We could, because we have all these Dazes, but our opponent, I think we want our opponent to tap out first before we do this. Or at least tap lower so our Dazes are relevant. Like, as it stands, we're just clocking our opponent. We've got interaction. An Orcish Bowmasters. I would like to Daze this, please. I would then like to Daze this. Like, we had to know this was coming. Like, we wouldn't just fire off one Daze there. It does mean that our Underground Sea is exposed to the Wasteland a little bit. But I can live with that. I kind of want to cast this Faerie Macabre. Just so we can get a flying attacker. Now is our opponent going to attack? They can funnel this mana into the Stalker to kill our Changeling if they want to. Interesting they're taking these fights on our turn, where if they do them on their turn and it goes to the graveyard, they grow their Stalker. That's a pretty good find here. Let's play our land out. Let's attack with our Changeling Outcast. And see. They did not want to remove that. Do I just play out this Engineer? I think so. We do go shields down the Murderous Cut. We do get to clean up an Orc army here. They've got another Bowmasters and that sucks, but... Alright, clear that guy out. So we could have done that first and attacked, but I'm still not attacking into that manner, I don't think. Alright, they're just going to kill our Bowmasters with their Stalker. Sure. That's fine. So we can attack with our Plague Engineer and reset it using our Yuriko, if we have a different creature type we want. And by putting the Yuriko in, we get 2 triggers off the Yuriko. That's pretty good. Right, it makes sense that our opponent's hand is a bunch of cantrips when they've been locked under a Bowmaster for a while, and they weren't necessarily doing anything and just passing turn with their mana open. So, that was a logical conclusion. I think this game might be won just by that Orcish Bowmasters amassing onto our Changeling Outcast play. The first time someone does that to you, you really feel it. Yeah, oh, damn. So we've all been in that spot before. No fetch lands. They are Brainstorm locked, but that might be out of choice. It might be better for them to play the island here for some reason. A Thoughtseize. How would I like to respond to this Thoughtseize? I will let them take it. Because if the scariest thing they can do is put like a big troll in. But if they do that, we'll have a Murderous Cut or a Faerie Macabre. If they just take our Yuriko, then that's fine. It's annoying, but fine. Like, we still got 4 power in play. And they're going to be going down to 9 off of this. So that's almost a 2-turn clock. Alright, they went for our Faerie Macabre. Opponent does have access to do, like, bouncing shenanigans here. With our creatures. Alright, let's crack this now. We might want to have double Yuriko here. So I'm just going to attack. Bounce this. If they bounce this, we can put the Yuriko in instead of our Changeling Outcast if we want to. So Dismember, it's going to take them a lot of life. So here is the Petty Theft. So now we can put this in instead of our Changeling Outcast if we want to. How useful is a 2-2 unblockable in this matchup is the question. It's probably better than our Yuriko, right? Is that a wild thing to say? I don't think so. I think we just take 2 damage here. So our opponent has full information of what our hand is. But we can do some work with cuts and things. If they reanimate Bowmasters, we can drop an Engineer and try and clear it out. Because I think having this at a 1-1 is an issue with Bowmasters around. So just having this 2-2 unblockable is just going to be really frustrating for our opponent. It's going to require some removal at some point. If they time the removal wrong, then we get to Yuriko in instead. We're going for a Wasteland here. So this means we can't Murderous Cut whatever they put into play right now. Just like a hard cast Grief or something. They're just reanimating the Stalker. That's fine. So this is just to grow this guy. But we can... Do you like this Bowmasters? Do I like this Bowmasters more than I like this Murderous Cut on this guy? They can spend 3 mana to turn this into a removal spell. That's their whole turn, and then we just Bowmasters them. I think that's pretty reasonable. Also, Bowmasters will grow this if they haven't grown their Stalker by the time they do it. A Petty Theft on our poor little guy. Our poor little guy. Okay. 2 Borrowers, interesting to note. There is a Wasteland. We get to ignore that for now. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. If we draw a land, we can just kill our opponent if we play this Orcish Bowmasters now. Brazen Borrower can't block it. We're going for the aggressive, we win the game line. So this will put our opponent to 3. We can attack for 2, and possibly our Yuriko will finish them off. Do they have a good card in their hand? I guess we'll find out. Did not find the land though. Attack. Pop back this Bowmaster into hand. This will also give us lethal damage that we can ping with, even if our Yuriko just hits a land. Alright, they're scooping it up. Nice. That was a lot, but we did get there in the end. Do you want to do anything differently? Dazes look a lot worse this time around. Bowmasters, Stalkers, like, what are we supposed to do about this? Are we supposed to have a few Force of Wills in? I really don't like Force of Will in this matchup. So I'll dress down. I don't mind having them as a thing we can draw in our deck. Alright, well this is not Keeper, is it? We also didn't show our opponent the Dauthi Voidwalkers. Okay, we'll keep this. And I guess we're throwing back a couple of lands here. Oh, we need to throw back one, don't we? Yeah, we'll throw back the non-basic. And we just Island Ponder our way to victory. The classic. We're getting Thoughtseize? No, our opponent's pondering. Let's get our Vista down. So I think I would rather ponder here and just get our ponders gone than have to worry about our opponent's Bowmasters, rather than getting these Retrofitters down before our opponent can Thoughtseize out of our hand, because they basically can't answer this once it's in play. So we have some options here. This Brainstorm could be a risk, but we have Bowmasters and an answer to Bowmasters. So I think we're going to put the Plague Engineer down and then draw the Yuriko. Alright, what if our Bowmasters doesn't resolve to kill their Bowmasters? And we'd just be stuck with this Brainstorm. We can at least shuffle it away, because our hand is fine. It doesn't really need assistance as it stands. It just needs a little bit of time. I think we're going to get Swamp here to shuffle it off. And I think we're just going to hold up the Bowmasters. I don't really want to cast it, but I'm happy to Sheoldred's Edict away a Stalactite Stalker. Right, opponent's getting the Undercity Sewers. I'm going to play a scary creature. Ooh, that's a scary one, isn't it? If they reanimate this, we can Sheoldred's Edict it. But it becomes, do we do it around a Daze or not? Well, I'm not just going to fire off this Bowmasters. That's not what this game is about. Well, it is what this game is about, but not just getting it on board. It needs to get a little bit of value on the way in. Alright, Murktide, that's pretty tasty. I will play this Retrofitter's Foundry. That's going to be a difficult thing for our opponent to answer. We can keep churning 1/1s. Like, Bowmaster's good against the 1/1, but if we can just churn them all the time, then the Bowmaster's power there becomes weaker. They didn't play an end of turn Bowmasters. We're playing the who can play the last Bowmasters game. They're playing a reanimate onto their guy. Our opponent has 5 cards in hand. Are we playing around a Daze or not? That is the question here. I think we probably are. We're going to just make a 1/1. Right, if our opponent wants to Bowmasters this, that's not too bad. We can just drop this Engineer and try and sweep out their Bowmasters, take a hit for 6, and then Sheoldred's Edict it afterwards. Right, things do need to go right for us here. Our opponent's down to 4 cards. We can take a hit from this. A land would be nice. We didn't find one. If our opponent's got a Daze here, I think they win the game. Alright, they did not have a Daze. Right, so we sweep those out. Next turn, we can Sheoldred's Edict away this troll. And if we find a land, we can Sheoldred's Edict and follow up. Well, we can Dauthi Voidwalker, then Sheoldred's Edict. Alright, we're getting Sheoldred's Edict, and that's fine. The Plague Engineer's already done its job. So if we do Sheoldred's Edict end of turn, our opponent we just play the Bowmaster, and then we don't actually get to deal with this troll. But now we might be able to find a land, so we can Sheoldred's Edict. If they do flash in a Bowmaster, we can Bowmaster their Bowmaster. We'll see. Reanimating the Plague Engineer. Now this is a different kettle of fish here, because this stops us from being able to Sheoldred's Edict this. And they're going to name Orc. Oh, they named Servo. Interesting. Okay, so this puts us to 12, right? Okay, so we can kill this with the Bowmasters. Okay. Like, we can just try and clear everything off the board. Yeah, this is a tough one. Alright, I think our plan is to Bowmasters and try and take this Engineer out. And then we can Dismember the Troll. Another Wasteland from our opponent, 2 cards left in their hand. They do have hard cast Force of Will mana here, though. So I think the thing that I would try and counterfire with them would be this Bowmasters. Right, so let's ping this one down. Let's block. What's our opponent doing? They are petty thefting our guy. Let's see if we can take this troll out. We've got 1 card in hand. Alright, so we got the actual prize off the board. We take no damage this turn. We get to crack back, put Yuriko into play. We just got another reanimate. Are they debating whether or not they want to reanimate though? Because going to 3 is a risky business perhaps. This deals 3 damage. But we'd have to chump this. And they've also got this coming in as well. Intriguing. They're reanimating on the Bowmasters. That's pretty good. Pretty good indeed. Okay, so we don't get to put in the Yuriko now. Our opponent's got a selection of creatures. Blue source is fine here. We did not find a blue source. The Ponder looks pretty bad. We could Ponder here. But they're about to play a Brazen Borrower as well. Ah, yikes. We could just play out a 1/3, and that's going to hold these 2 back. But then we'll take 5. And then where are we at? If we play the Yuriko... Sorry, not the Yuriko. If we play the Yuriko, these get held back, and then they just block this later on. If we play the Sheoldred's Edict, we can clear out 2 power... I guess if we play the Sheoldred's Edict now... we might get to Ponder. Or we get to clear 2 damage off the board. We could clear 3 damage off the board if they want to play this Borrower. But I doubt that's what they're going to do. Just to play into the Edict. They're going to play end of turn. I think they're just forcing damage through here. Yeah, this is a close one. Alright, they got rid of the Plague Engineer. So that's our Ponder not switched on. I don't think we're supposed to cast this Ponder. Because this will put us to 7, and then they'll hit us for 6. And then that's just lights out very easily to Bowmasters and things like that. Oh, they didn't play the end of turn Borrower. That's huge. Do they not have another fetchable? That can't be right. Interesting. Why didn't they play the Borrower? Have they just forgotten about it? I hope so. That gives us a shot. Okay. So now we can start making servos and blocking these guys. Which can also turn into Thopters to block this guy. That's quite the rip from our opponent there. Okay. How are we going to do this one? Ornithopter. How do we do this one? They didn't play the Borrower last turn. So we get this guy out. Are we playing the Dauthi which can't block? No, I don't think so. This is 3. So we take 5. So block this and this. So we need our opponent to forget that they have the Borrower again. I don't think we're playing out the Yuriko here. Are we playing out the Yuriko? Maybe we're playing out the Yuriko. Yes, I think we play out the Yuriko here. And then hope our opponent forgets about their Brazen Borrower again. Our opponent has not forgotten about their Brazen Borrower. Sure, so if they attack with... So we block here, we take exactly 6. If they swing out, if they got more good stuff. They have a win. They obviously don't know what we've got in hand. Alright, they just absolutely smashed us there. Sure. Yep, our opponent's draws were a little bit better than ours, but I think we held our own in all of those games. It felt like they were all winnable if things break for us a little bit differently. So I think our deck gave a really good account for itself there. And we were just a little bit unfortunate. Like, I think we lost to the triple Bowmaster draw of our opponent. And then obviously we lost to this one with the very clutch amount of reanimates, getting back Bowmasters. And obviously, like, the double Borrower hand is pretty good too. So, yeah, I don't feel bad about losing that one. We got one more round to go. Let's see if we can make it a 4-1. Alright, so we're in the final round. I don't like our only land being an Undercity Sewers. I think I'm going to send this one back. Yep, this one is going to do the thing that we want it to do. Keep this. I think the Brainstorm is the most likely one I want to put back, weirdly. Like, our mana's spoken for. If we're having to deal with Borrowers, actually, it could be the Borrower. Actually, yeah, we're going to put back the Borrower here. I might regret that, but we'll see. It's got too much Orcish Bowmaster on the brain. Opponent does have a Goblin avatar, so maybe they're just going to be Goblining us pretty hard. And that might be quite a difficult matchup. Although you shouldn't assume what your opponent's playing based on their avatar. Alright, an Underground Sea. Let's attack with our little friend. For the mana our opponent's displaying, the only kill spell that we actually care about here is Dismember. So I think we're just going to ninjutsu our little friend in, see if we can start drawing some extra cards. They could stifle us here, I suppose, but they didn't. Entomb. Well. This is probably going to end a little bit awkwardly for us. So they're going to get an Archon of Cruelty, I imagine. There it is. So let's draw a card and hope it's a good one. We do have an answer for their Archon of Cruelty, though. But we will be losing our good card. Animate Dead. Alright. We'll lose our Ingenious Infiltrator and our Misty Rainforest, because the Prismatic is just better here. So our opponent got additional follow-up here. They do. Alright. So we are almost certainly done here. They're going to take our Sheoldred's Edict. There it goes. And then we're going to have to try and draw into some more removal. Brainstorm. Oh. Let's tap the correct land, shall we? Brainstorm. Orcish Bowmasters makes multiple creatures. Ornithopter can block for a turn. It's grim now, isn't it? I guess this Force of Will isn't doing anything right now, is it? I think we're going to get a black source here. It's just Orcish Bowmasters. So we get a creature to sack, and then we get a creature back again. But we are taking 8, so this is a 2-turn clock, so we will need to find something to deal with his Archon of Cruelty. Get rid of our token, we get rid of this. So they're going to draw a card here, which is going to give us a Bowmaster ping, which is going to give us a guy to sack next turn. Bowmasters really does do it all. What a guy. Although we are getting smashed up pretty hard here. They're cycling control, they're going to reanimate this as well, just for more guys to ruin our day. Doing some surveilling with their Undercity Sewers. No reanimate. Okay, that's something, I guess. Yuriko. I guess we're attacking. Let's see if we can get our Yuriko to... I don't know what it's supposed to hit here. Dismember's not good enough. We need 2 cards, basically. We need land and Borrower, or land and... We've already used our Edict, haven't we? I guess Murderous Cut does it, actually. And then we're dead. Yeah. Murderous Cut was the out there. Okay. A graveyard deck. Let's board in these Faerie Macabres and these Dauthi Voidwalkers. I believe our opponent will also have the Orcish Bowmasters. So I would like to have a Plague Engineer to deal with those. Flusterstorm is useful. The Dress Downs have some text too. Our opponent's deck, back to bases is fine, but I don't think that's the axis we need to fight on here. So trim a couple of Ornithopters, that's pretty standard. Snuff Out is terrible here. These deal with big guys. I don't think we're going to have the push. Yes, it can deal with Grief and Bow Boys, but I think we have better tools to do that. We are still looking to cut a whole bunch of other things here. Dismember, it deals with Troll, so I think we have to keep that in. Kind of need our little engines here. Do we have enough time to start cooking with these retrofitters? Maybe we're not on the retrofitter plan. We can at least trim 1. I do like the Murktide still. It's just a good card. Maybe we're not going to have enough time to do all the pondering that we would want to do. And then we're like trimming some of this plan a little bit. Do we want the Dress Downs, I guess? How good are the Dress Downs? They're okay. They're kind of like a counterspell at times. I don't think that's what we want to be. Let's just have our cards and just do our thing. Right, that's 60. Let's go in. I think back to basics is too slow for this matchup. Jeez. We're relying on the top of our deck if we keep, so I don't think we can do that. We could always Brainstorm turn 1, but I don't like that. Smart. Well, this hand is unplayable, so we're going to be going to 5. Okay, we can keep this. Murktide Regent is a problem for later. I like the Daze. I guess Yuriko is a thing for later as well. Let's just Island Ponder. Magic the Gathering as it was intended to be played. Okay. Force of Will is nice. I don't hate the Changeling Outcast. Now, the problem with Force of Will is our opponent can just wreck our day with like a Grief. Speaking of the devil, so we let this hit. They can't reanimate it through our Daze unless they've got counter magic of their own, in which case we're just doomed anyway. But yeah, here's a Troll. Like, if all they're doing is like the Grief lines, then that's fine for us because that's quite a slow clock and we can usually get past it. It's the problem when this lays the way for other scarier things. Alright, we're going to see a land. Probably going to be an Underground Sea. There it is. Just a Ponder. Okay. So they might be waiting to try and reanimate the Grief around a Daze since they know that's what we have. So we're going to draw our little Ninja, Thopter, Orc Army, Swiss Army Knife Man. So we're going to be on the board. But we're playing 1-mana 1/1s and our opponent is playing slightly bigger creatures, I would say. Alright. Brainstorm, yep, that's not our fight. Wish I was playing one of these like many Pyroblast decks, because then you actually do fight over a lot of the Brainstorms. That feels great to be able to just do that. And no follow-up from our opponent. So maybe we can do a thing if we can find a ninja right now. We did not find a ninja. We also don't have the mana to play a Brazen Borrower. Kind of the downside of our mana base a little bit. We've had a few situations where we've struggled to cast like a blue-blue spell or a black-black spell. Alright, Undercity Sewers. Are they going to mill a big boy? No, an animate dead. But they put it to the graveyard. That's interesting. Fatal Push. Okay, that's our only thing we had going for us. A little bit sad. And a Ponder. So we're looking for... Orcish Bowmasters would be pretty good here. Can't really cast this Murktide given our mana situation. But we didn't have an option to fetch our non-basic because we just had Vistas. Okay, so now we can actually cast our Brazen Borrower. So we could just start attacking for 3. End of turn Brainstorm. Like, our opponent's hand has got to be pretty amazing at this point. They've got a full grip that they've sculpted over several turns, and we've just got these 2 bad cards. They're not bad cards, but like the Daze is obviously getting a lot worse, and the Brazen Borrower is kind of a delaying tactic, or just like a reasonable creature. The legacy is not really about reasonable creatures; it's about unreasonable creatures. Okay, we don't get to do anything about that because of our Daze is not going to be able to pay for that. So we're going to get an Archon of Cruelty or an Atraxa, I believe. Probably the Atraxa, given they know we've got a Borrower as well. Just get like a super big reload. Yeah, there it is. No Faerie Macabre for us. And they're reanimating this. We can cast a Daze and they will pay. So that's not really going to get us anywhere. We can bounce this, so at least it's not a threat in play. Doesn't feel good. Okay. So they've got another Entomb. So they can put the Archon on the bottom and then Entomb it. So what do they take? Reanimate, Regent, Force of Will, Undercity Sewers. Okay. So they have a Reanimate. They can reanimate this Grief. They'll do it next turn anyway, rather than now. Not that we really have anything to take. But maybe our 3-1 can get there. A Brainstorm. That is a welcome. Is it that welcome? Interesting. I think we will leave this Murktide on top. That seems like a fine creature to put into play. Is this good enough for a Force of Will? I suspect it probably is. There it is. They pitch the Regent as expected. We cannot Daze this. I guess we're going to put the Daze back, but it might do something. More so than this Ninja anyway. Swamp Cycling. Okay. So Reanimate can be a little sketchy for our opponent. Because they're not getting one of their big haymakers. They're just getting like some reasonable cards. Like Troll is obviously a pretty large. Okay, so they have this as well. Okay, they've got the Archon of Cruelty, so the Murktide on top isn't going to do anything. Yeah, we're just dead here. Alright, we got kind of crushed by that last deck. I don't think we have enough graveyard hate, really, to really help that matchup. We did also mulligan to 5, I think, so... Alright, but we started out 3-0. Like, our deck felt fine. The first round we lost was round 4, and, you know, our opponent had to rip pretty hot to beat us. I think we were very, very competitive and even in that matchup. The last matchup felt like we were kind of playing different games, and I think like the blue-black Rescaminator is definitely like one of the better decks in the format right now. People are trying to work out how to sideboard with it in a way that can get around graveyard hate. So people are playing like shadow packages or Triumph of St. Catherine off of a splash and things like that. But like the core of the deck is just so strong. Anyway, let's talk about our Ninjas deck. Like the last time I played this, which you should check out in the description below, there'll be a link to it. This deck felt really good. It felt like we were doing legacy power level stuff. We didn't get sort of jammed up with just these rubbish guys too often. And I do like the synergy between Orcish Bowmasters and Changeling Outcast. I think I would recommend cutting an Ornithopter for a 4th Orcish Bowmasters. That is something I think this deck could probably benefit from. Because, you know, Orcish Bowmasters is very good. But, you know, we went toe-to-toe with good decks. You know, like the blue-black sort of traditional scam deck. We were so close to just winning the 2 games we lost against them. Like, things had to go quite wrong for it to sort of put us out there, because we have a draw engine in our deck, whereas they don't really have card advantage in their deck. They kind of just have like good spells and play like a tempo game plan. So if we get past a certain point and we can leverage our sort of resource generating cards like these, then we can really sort of put the pedal to the metal and kind of grind them out. And it takes a lot for us to fall behind once we start pulling ahead. So yeah, I was quite impressed with how this deck felt. Sideboard wise, I think the sideboard is fine. I think I would I'm kind of interested in having a second Back to Basics over this Wasteland. I think if you're going into Back to Basics, you just go hard, especially with loads of people playing all these Surveil lands. I think Back to Basics just gets a lot more valuable. The Dress Downs, I understand why they're there, but I think in this current meta, I would rather have more Graveyard Hate. So chuck some more fairies in there. Ley lines, perhaps, is kind of where you need to be in the world of Grief. Like, obviously, we can hardcast a ley line as well in our deck, but we've got things to put them back with the Brainstorms. We can push them deeper with the Ponder, etc. So I think I'd be interested in a couple of ley lines. I don't know if you want 4 ley lines, or if you want to split them like between the Macabres and the ley lines. But I think you probably want some ley lines in the format right now. And that would certainly shore up the last matchup that we lost. Although if we'd have kept a 7, maybe we'd have been okay. I don't know. But yeah, everything else is more or less there. The time we did step on our own toes by fetching basics and then not being able to cast like black spells or blue spells. But basically, the only blue spells we want to cast is Murktide Regent and Brazen Borrower. And the only black spell we want to cast is Dauthi Voidwalker. So I think it's worth like taking that hit a little bit there. Now we also, because we only have like the one untapped duel, it sometimes means if we're drawing like a Misty Rainforest at the wrong time, that can be a little bit awkward. But again, that's just a one-off, and I think it's fine to have in the deck. But yeah, I think adding another Orcish Bowmasters would probably be where I would like to play this deck next time. Also, I would cut Snuff Out as a removal spell. I just don't think it's very good in the format right now. I think we can do better. I think another Sheoldred's Edict would be pretty handy. Another Murderous Cut also fine, or another Fatal Push. I don't think we want another Dismember. But yeah, I do not like Snuff Out right now in Legacy. I just don't think it's got like 25% of the format is Rescaminator and Red-Black Reanimator. Obviously, Red-Black Reanimator is the smaller of those two percentages, but it's, you know, the sort of the blue-black scam decks. Like, depending on which site you go to, they have different decks lumped into the. So some websites are lumping the Red-Black Reanimator and the Blue-Black Reanimator in the same category, and some decks are lumping the Blue-Black Scammed lists with the Rescaminator build, like the last deck we played. So either way, lots of black creatures right now. I don't think Snuff Out is a card we want in the main deck. Like, you could play it in the sideboard as like a different removal spell if you wanted to, but I just don't think that's where I would want to be. But other than that, like, this deck is pretty powerful at doing what it does. Like, you have these bad creatures that people don't want to spend removal on, but they kind of have to. And if they don't, you kind of just run away with the game. And if they do, then you just sort of reload with Bowmasters or Regent. So I think having another Bowmaster would really help for that strategy. Also, I think it's not unreasonable to cut Ponders from decks. I think some people cling to having 4 copies of Ponders all the time when you don't necessarily need that. I think it was Manguchi posted their list that they're playing. Well, when I'm recording this today, they posted their list that they're playing at the next 4 seasons and only had 3 Ponders. So if it's good enough for Manguchi, it's good enough for the rest of us. But, well, you know, if you watch my channel, you know that I sometimes trim Ponder post-board as well. Like, it's good to have a thing that fetches and does stuff in the main deck, but sometimes you just need a higher density of the hits. But that's an option you have. But I think the first things I think about cutting would be this Snuff Out has to go. It just does. I just don't like it. And the Ornithopter, I think you could trim one Ornithopter for a Bowmasters, or you could trim a Ponder for a Bowmasters. Like, obviously, Ponder is a much better card than Ornithopter, but Ornithopter is part of our engine, so make of that what you will. But I think 7 copies should be enough to get there, and we don't need to be doing that. And we are bringing in a thing that produces 2 bodies as well, so there is something to think on. We definitely don't want to cut the Changing Outcast because it has really nice synergy across the board. Alright, I think that's us done for today. I hope you enjoyed watching this one. I do quite enjoy playing a bit of ninjas, and I like sort of these innovations on this particular list that the donors sent me twice now, where we've kind of found out how to play in the Orcish Bowmasters world with ninjas, and I like it. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo decks guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.